Hey everybody, this is Skeet.
Rosh and Mikey.
Got some Moshmen Minutes for you today.
Yeah. Proceed with your Moshmen minutes.
All right, so I saw something. I was cruising around on X, and there's some rumors running around that Alex Van Halen is possibly going to start working on a new Van Halen album with Steve Lukather from Toto.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's what,
it's
yeah.
always been known that Steve Lukather and Eddie Van Halen were buddies, and they've jammed and all that kind of stuff. So right now it's all rumors, but it was I guess it was good enough to put into Guitar World. So I
Yeah.
don't know if there's something to that. It says something about uh, a new album was not considered to be a likely possibility because Eddie passed. But Michael Anthony was said that there was an archive of unreleased, unfinished Van Halen that exists.
Yeah.
So he kind of said,
Yeah.
yeah, Eddie's got some stuff back there.
I,
And
I know they had the one song that was supposed to be in the movie Twister way back when. And
so,
it's been circulating on the internet. It's called Unfinished. It's just a
okay.
musical piece. And I also know that I know Alex, they said, at least the rumor was Alex was talking about doing this before, and he started having medical problems with neuropathy.
Yeah.
So he was kind of leaning towards not being in the doing it anymore, just being done. And Steve Lukather, they've been buddies for years, is what I understand. But
Yes.
Steve Lukather has done a shit ton of stuff. I mean, he might be the main guy in Toto, but he's done some impressive guitar work all over the place. So
Yeah.
I guess my only thing would be, and this I talked a little bit about this with one of my biggest Van Halen buddies on the internet last night, and I think you could put an album out with Alex and Steve Lukather doing unfinished songs that Eddie had started or whatnot. My problem would lie in if you released it as a Van Halen album. I really don't know that I would be, real. I mean, it's nothing. Of course, my opinion means shit,
Yeah.
but for me as a fan, I would not dig it, you know. And I had another buddy from high school chime in. He said the same thing. He agreed with me, but his favorite band of all time is Rush. And he would feel the same way if they did it with a different drummer and called it Rush. They can do, of course, we want to hear the music.
Yeah.
But couldn't you just call it like, Alex Van Halen or Van Halen Luthaker or something that, that's not the moniker of Van Halen
I mean,
itself.
I kind of hope that if they release this, it's kind of like unreleased Eddie Van Halen material or something like that, where it's not actually a Van Halen album at all because you don't know.
All right.
You've got three different vocalists you could tap to come in to do stuff, but you know what I'm saying? Maybe it's just better to release it under Edward Van Halen, unreleased songs,
Well, I
just
mean,
under his name.
I don't know that I would if they use his guitar tracks, of course. But I think what they're talking about, at least the understanding I have, is they're talking about Luther playing the guitar parts and recording them with Alex. So then it becomes, I don't want that listed under Eddie's name if it's not Eddie's guitar part.
Well,
And I
yeah,
don't,
but
and you don't want it under Van Halen because that band kind of stands on Eddie Van Halen,
yeah,
to me.
yeah.
Now,
I
if it
don't
was
know.
Wolfie doing it, if it
Huh?
was Wolfie playing, I would be a little lean towards maybe. If Wolfie was playing the guitar parts, and I'm not saying Steve Lukather isn't like part of their family, he probably is. But to call it Van Halen with just Alex, it's kind of one of those things, where you get into these bands that no remaining members are living and shit. Van Halen should be what it was. Any unreleased material should be, I think, under a different name. That's just me personally.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if they're going to utilize Eddie's stuff that he wrote, then I don't see a problem with it. Like unfinished projects, it's got to have his name on it. It's
Well,
got
you
to.
can give him you can give him credit, but it doesn't mean his name has to be in the album itself. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
you can if they use his tracks, of course.
yes.
But if they're just using his track as a bass line and Luther's re-recording these,
Well,
it
I don't
becomes
know what it's going
different.
to be. It could be he could just called him in because he knows how Eddie's stuff should go, and maybe he's going to help him piece it together. I mean, as like an engineer
Yeah,
or a
maybe.
producer.
Yeah, it's
So
going to be interesting to see. Yeah,
who knows? Yeah, who knows how that's going to turn out?
I mean, I'm all for it. I'm all for new Van Halen material. I would struggle a little bit with how they release it, but that's just me being a picky fan. Kind of like, the whole Rush thing we talked about. Now, even if like a band like Nirvana would release new material with a new singer, would they really be cool to release it as Nirvana?
Yeah, yeah,
That kind of
no.
thing is what I'm getting at.
Well, hopefully they know how to handle it tastefully to get something out. I mean, that's kind of the important thing. Fans want to
Yeah.
hear it. You know, I don't care what title it is. It's Eddie Van Halen music.
Yeah, yeah. If it's his, especially if it's his music, and his brother is, I mean, he is a Van Halen too. So
Yeah,
you could swing it both ways. It's just personal preference for me. Just release it as a slightly different name, even if it, like Wolfie does the whole Wolfgang band.
yeah,
He does a little different, so you don't get the big confusion from people. But yeah, I mean, Alex was only in Van Halen, but I just don't want to see him become one of those only one surviving member releases an
yeah,
album under that name to get to hype and shit. So
yeah.
that's just me,
Exactly.
though.
All right, and then I got this. So this is one of your favorites, Dean Castronovo.
Yes, I'm in this fan club. I'm a very big fan. So
He says, "Hey Houston, an act of God tonight. Fire broke out underneath the stage, right under my drum riser. I was literally on fire for 4.5 songs. All the power cables melted. This show is a bust. That doesn't mean we won't
wow,
be back soon. Love you all, and we will return. God bless."
that's
So,
scary. That is scary that
yes,
that happens.
yes,
And unfortunately, that's not even the first in the past couple of years. That's not even the first time I've heard of a drummer being in peril, danger. Last year on Falling in Reverse did some shows, and Luke Holland plays drums for Falling in Reverse. He actually got burns on his arm from the heat. And the thing about Luke Holland, I give him credit. The wind was blowing in. This was at Sonic Temple, actually. The wind was blowing in on the when they were doing the pyros, and it got so where he would stop because the heat got so intense. People were stopping. They continued to try to play that song, and they finally did at 4 times. But every time they used the pyro still, the
yeah,
wind was still blowing in. So yeah, Luke Holland was he actually had good sized heat burns on his arm and
yes,
never missed a show. But that under a legend like Castronovo, that's scary because who knows what something would have sparked and went straight up. Yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot of people give him a credit he's due. I mean, because he's both a drummer and a singer in two different bands. But he's been around a long time doing it, and it's like that probably would be a first for him. That's pretty scary stuff, man. Get your act together, Houston. Houston, we have a problem down
yeah, no doubt.
there.
Uh,
Kill our legend, man.
I thought I saw something a couple days ago. Uh, Somebody was playing on the rock cruise and had a fucking heart attack on stage.
That's I don't know. I didn't hear about that. I have to look that up. But I mean, it's not uncommon. Boston's drummer died during a performance. And it's like he had been doing it forever and ever. It just goes. You never know. At least you got to do what you love to do when you win.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So who's Dean
That's
out with right now? Is he touring with?
Journey. The
So
Journey.
this must
Yeah.
was this a Journey show? Do you know?
Yeah, it had to been. I mean, that's the only band I know he's out with right now is Journey. Because Revolution Saints is his project, but he sings for them
Okay,
and plays drum. But he sings for Journey too, of course, but not as many. But yeah, I'm thinking I haven't heard any Revolution Saints stories, so it's got to be a Journey show.
okay.
That's like that was news to me. You just told me a few minutes ago, so I didn't even hear about it yet. And I was like, oh, that's kind of crazy, but
Well, Mikey, you got
it's
any other little bit of news to go through or anything?
just a couple small ones.
Okay,
I know I had announced that Sleep Token was only doing the one show this year in the festival.
yeah,
They snuck around and now have a North American tour, so people are going to be pretty happy about Sleep
nice.
Token being out. So you'll have Sleep Token and Ghost. So both of the weird, kind of spooky bands out at the same time. So that's pretty cool. And that's basically Not Enough Space dropped a new song last night.
Oh, cool.
That's yeah, it's a little different, a little scary, a little more gnashing of teeth sounding vocals. I didn't like it as much as their previous, but it's The Devil Left Me on Red. So if you want to check that out, you can check that out too for metalcore fans out there.
Nice. Well, maybe
That's all the
maybe that
that's all.
we'll be able to do a little. You'll be able to do a little review on our next episode.
Yeah, yeah. I have to listen to it a couple more times, and just gave it a one shot. And I did screw up in our last live stream, and I want to apologize.
Oh,
Put that
okay.
right. I thought Spirit Box's album was coming out in April. It came out. It is
Oh,
out.
nice.
Tsunami, Tsunami Sea. It's I got to listen to it a couple more times. It's not as good as Eternal Blue, but like I said, I've only listened to it once all the way through. So I will give that a couple more shots, and I can review it later at some time too.
Awesome. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for our minutes this week.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. This is Skeet.
Mush and Mikey,
See ya.
peace out.